All right, it is 9 o'clock on Tuesday, November 13th, 2018. I call the Potter County Commission Court to order. Today we have Mike Cummings from Second Baptist Church in our invocation, so if you please stand and remain standing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's all pray together. Father God, creator of all things, we come to you now declaring our love and dependence on you. We acknowledge and receive your free gift of salvation through the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, we seek your guidance today. You set all things in order, including this governing body. Together may they accept their sacred duty to serve everyone here today, to seek justice with clarity, resolve, and equity, to love mercy and practice kindness to all people, walk humbly and under your sovereign guidance. May we all display our love for others and employ charity, discernment, maturity, and wisdom. May we all serve our fellow citizens with impartiality and support and encourage integrity from ourselves and others. This community has entrusted these men and women to seek what's best for everyone and promote the common good for all people according to your will. Bless their efforts in this meeting to complete the task set before them today. Forgive us when we fail to impartially seek and follow your plans, not only for ourselves, but for our fellow men. Make us more like you in all that we do. In the name of our loving Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Right, first thing on the agenda is the recognition of minutes for the October 22nd and October 29th, 2018 meetings. Changes, not so recognized. Number 2, budget amendment to consider and act upon approving budget amendments for 2018-2019 this week.
Carrie, just item 3, the budget oversight, medical recoveries.
Nothing not budgeted for that in the county attorney's office, revenue or expense, so it's just a wash. I just needed to add it to the budget.
Thank you.
Mike, I have a question on it tonight. Item 2. 3445 for salaries and fringe benefits. And we're taking that out of contingency. Is that what contingency is for? It seems to me like contingencies ought to be for some sort of emergency.
This department is so small that there's not even a cost to take it out of that department. That's really the only thing, we just have it sitting there and it's not assigned to something.
What's it for?
It's about 23 days of paid for work. We had one quit and she was paid out for vacation time. We didn't have money in this budget to hire somebody.
So it's a temporary.
It would be like a 23-day period that you would have to go to the license office. Instead of 2.
Still have.
He has one left, he put one up, and he's right another one.
This person we're hiring, is it just a temporary, because we're getting a new person in there, and they'll let their own people?
Okay, now in case you had a question, we got Elizabeth, we didn't expect her to leave all of a sudden, she had to go. The office at this time of year, we pick up business from now through about 17, till 17 December. With only one clerk, it would cause severe delays, interruptions in the services for our citizens and our customers. If I have spoken with Mr. Taylor, and, matter of fact, we've been working together on getting him lined up for schools. And if he has any replacements, he'll handle that after he gets done with all this stuff in his office.
See, my question is, this what lady that you did hire for a month and a half, what if he doesn't keep her? When she's gone after, doesn't seem quite fair.
Well, I agree.
Well, but I guess it's with the understanding before I hired that it was just temporary, correct?
Correct.
So,
Oh, she didn't know it's temporary?
Yes, she came from across the street.
Can she go back?
That I do not know. But she knew when she came on board, it was a temporary thing, depending on whether Mr. Taylor wants to keep them.
where did she come from?
District Court's District Court's office.
So I guess you worked with the department head at district court to, get a temporary person to fill in until December 17th or at the end of the year, with the understanding that she could go back to district court or she didn't have a position.
No. She came on board. Yes, she was just getting like some few hours over there and everything was understood with her when she came on board. If Mr. Taylor decides to make personnel changes, then it's just the way it is.
So that's clear to her understanding.
And I'll roll with it.
And on behalf of the court, I mean, I'm happy to reach out to Mr. Taylor. I've done that certainly right after the election and just let him know this discussion happened at court.
He already called me about it
Perfect.
this morning.
And what were his thoughts then, if you know that?
He doesn't know if he's gonna hire somebody new.
Okay.
But he was concerned about why this was done, about why you hired somebody six weeks left in the term.
Yeah.
And I said, that's a fair question.
Just so we don't cause delays or interruptions in people's service in the office. When I took over, there was backlog, and I don't want to put that on the guy taking over.
How long did this person work for you, do you know?
I do not know.
Anybody know that?
Is anybody here from the district clerk's office? Nobody? Anybody here from personnel? Okay. This is Barbara, what's her name?
Barbara,
Barbara. What's her last name?
I believe it's,
Bill? Barbara Bill?
Is that right?
Is she,
I'm not familiar.
is that right?
with-
Okay, she may be going back.
Napier?
She was a previous employee, I don't think she was current.
So she's not currently employed at district clerk's
I
office?
don't believe so, it's my understanding she was a previous employee.
Okay.
It's- Okay.
Well,
So
I guess
it's
she's
pretty,
hoping.
it's pretty obvious she won't be able to go back then.
I think she's probably hoping to keep the job.
Well, I guess with the anticipated increase of workload, we're gonna need a person. And if it's understood that that individual is temporary,
And I'll go upstairs right after this and set her down and clarify everything with her. Elizabeth did the interview and training with her and everything, and my interactions with her are just coming to the front desk, and, when there's questions about traffic tickets and stuff like that.
I make a motion that we approve the budget amendments for the 2018-2019 fiscal year as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on the table, raise your hand. Vouchers to consider and act upon the approval of the payment of vouchers processed by the county auditor's office on the period of October 2018 through November 7, 2018. Check number 182888, are these correct check number numbers? Okay. 31839196 and wire transfers 1147 through 1160, the total amount of $3,711,543.05.
That includes payroll.
That includes payroll, we don't have to do the payroll. This
we're going to approve the vouchers and payroll as stated by the county clerk.
Second for discussion, I do have a couple questions, Judge. Carrie, page 1 of 28, there's a couple of Bs of Dallas County Constable, some out-of-county service, and there's a couple throughout the vouchers. What is that they would be, what service would they provide us?
Sort of citation to someone who lives in those other counties.
I just don't know that I've ever seen that many at one time, so I didn't know if there's something has changed or,
We haven't very much.
okay. Page 6 of 28, check number 182962, there's a line item for an employee chest x-ray for occupational health. Is that a pre-employment type of thing? I'm surprised to see that line.
We're required to get everybody a TB test, and some of them
Okay.
have a positive test with the shot, so they have to do the chest X-ray.
That makes sense, thank you, Sheriff. Page 11 of 28, check number 183045, it looks like some travel, echoes some comments, some, similar comments Commissioner Church had about leaving office. I was surprised to see travel expenses with an elected official leaving office, which I know is in their purview to do, so I don't wanna get in that conversation. I just am more concerned about the budget for the incoming person. Will they have enough dollars to offset that? I know year one is typically more accreditation needed.
When I saw these advances coming through, I did contact Carly. We pretty much hold the Wayne Doug official at 25%, and this may take it a little bit over, but she was fine with that, so I didn't.
Okay, just wanna make sure the person coming in is set up for success. Okay. Page 15 of 28, check number 183080, 14,500 Fairleigh Group, the in lieu of commission.
Right, that's the liability insurance that y'all approved, last meeting or 2 meetings ago.
That's their fee.
That's the fee rather than a percentage.
That's workers' comp.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Workers, yeah, that's their workers' comp. And so,
And then one final question, more to loop back to budget, page 25 of 28, check number 183177. The Texas Conference of Urban Counties, the TechShare membership, a little bit over 6,000. Is this what we expected during budget? I know we get projected numbers and then we get the actual line item.
And actually, that should not say tech share, that is just our CUC membership, and that is not what we expect.
Just the CUC membership, it's not the portion of TechShare.
No, it's not.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Judge.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. Any other questions? All right, go ahead.
I just wanted I'd like to ask our constables, what benefit the members of the National Constable Marshals Association would have for the
What page are you on?
county? This is, page 21.
Are you going up there?
137.
They hold training conferences like the state does, it's just more training. I mean, the national conference has an officer safety. Also by joining this national association, we now have access to a library of officer safety, it's called some kind of officer safety library. For online training for officer safety. You know, contrary to popular belief of a few commissioners, we do put our lives on the line out on the streets. You know, I know a couple commissioners have wrote, no, we do, some of you don't, but that's the benefit is officer safety training.
Well, regional, state, and national. Yeah, so.
And we never knew about a national association, all the other constables in the state apparently did, but LEMIT, which is, I guess, the big training deal for constables, sheriffs, chiefs of police, they're gonna be at the national conference, and they're the ones that brought to light this national association. I mean,
Well, when I graduated from LEMIT, this past October, from the Texas Constable Leadership College that was presented, it is, being encouraged by LEMIT, which is Bill Blackwood Law Enforcement Institute. So it's pushing, and we are all now, again, regional, state, and national. There's many classes, we get to meet and network with other constables around the United States and marshals. So this is exciting for us, great opportunity. This also puts Carter County on the map again as we represent the county. So this is why it's beneficial.
So you're enhancing your professional.
Absolutely.
You give them network and bring things to this part of this team.
And they offer, and the National Association offers a lot of training also. Matter of fact, I've been contacted already since joining by a couple of the head members, the president. I talked to the state of Texas has 2 reps for the National Association. And when we say marshals, the marshals are not like US marshals. It's a different kind of, like city marshal type deal. Works out of municipal. They do the same job we do, but they do it out of a municipal court instead of a JP court. But, and then, like I said, we got wealthy emails that now give us access to their whole training library. And to me, it's training, how can training not be beneficial?
I'm all for training, don't get me wrong on that, but I guess we're always encouraged to be part of the National Association of Counties, and we're not. So,
It used to be
I
though.
hope that it is beneficial to the county, because we're spending county taxpayer dollars.
Is that the money already been allotted to us? We're not asking for any additionals already on the budget. I mean,
And, the $60 registration fee does come out of my registration on my budget, but I've got almost $2,000 of LEOS funds built up. So that's what I get from the Attorney General every year, that every law enforcement agency in the state of Texas gets from the state of Texas every year. So, it's not like I'm spending money I'm asking for anything extra. I mean,
We're within our budget.
we always stay within our budget. We give back money, I'm sure, every year to our budget. We don't go.
You've come back for travel expenses, some for more, so.
I've never come back for travel.
I'm just saying, when you say a blanket,
No, we've never came back with extra travel expenses. I know my office had.
I mean, if you talk about at budget time, yeah, okay, but at budget time, when they want to increase their, education budget, but travel expenses, I've never come back.
I'm encouraged that we do have a department of constables, that we have come from below ground zero to where we are now. And we've got constables that are, passionate and interested in doing the work that they are called to do. And, they are a unique, position. I was one of those ones that rode along with the constables, and, I wouldn't wanna do that. And they do put their lives on the line, as any other police officers throughout their area. So the more training that will enhance them, not only protect them, but also serve the citizens of this county, to me, is better. And if it's not going out of the way, as far as expenditures, that's what they're supposed to be doing.
We appreciate you recognizing it too. Thank you.
Any more questions? Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. I'm gonna skip down to number 8, so these people can have to stay through this. Number 8 is 2018 Texas Planning Official Award to recognize Carter County Commissioner Mercy Murguia as a recipient of the 2018 Texas Planning Elected Official Award. AJ, come on up. Good morning. Good morning.
It's nice to see some familiar faces and be back up here. I appreciate you giving me a moment on your agenda to make this presentation. I think it's worth your time and attention this morning. As you all may remember me, my name is AJ Fowler, and I am previous planning director in the city of Amarillo, now in the city of Lubbock. And I also serve as the director of the Northwest Texas section of the American Planning Association, who is bestowing this award today. So I'll read through the proclamation. Whereas the Texas chapter of the American Planning Association recognizes that extraordinary planning efforts are being made around the state, and whereas as annual conference, the Texas chapter has a long history of recognizing individuals, organizations, and communities for exemplary contributions to planning through the chapter's annual Planning Awards program. And whereas the Elected Official Award recognizes an official that has made an outstanding contribution to planning, And whereas Commissioner Murguia demonstrated advocacy, community engagement, and partnerships as she worked closely with the City of Amarillo's Planning Director, City Council, and Neighborhood Advisory Committee in their efforts to create a neighborhood plan for the Barrio neighborhood. And whereas the Texas chapter seeks to reward and recognize Commissioner Murguia's efforts as exceptional, the epitome of the type of partnerships the planning profession needs with elected officials. And whereas the Texas Chapter Awards Committee unanimously voted to recognize Potter County Commissioner Mercy Murguia with this award. And whereas this is the first such award given to Potter County or the City of Amarillo, bringing positive recognition for the work occurring in this area of the state. Now therefore, I, on behalf of Judge Nancy Tanner, County Judge of Potter County, do hereby recognize and applaud Commissioner Mercy Murguia's performance and receipt of this prestigious award, and ask that the Commissioner's Court join me in commending her for her efforts. Of course, so we have a beautiful award. And we're very happy to give to you.
Thank you. Of course, thank you very much.
Anything you say?
I have a couple of things on the, what we can say, we don't, we're down to business. So, a couple of things I would like to add if I can, Judge. So what we have in our packet, which was very profound to me, and AJ, you may have not seen this, but this is the document that went out. This was on the place setting of where we were seated, and when I got the call, that I was going to be awarded, which was still very quiet until it went public. I did have to go receive the award in Galveston, certainly on behalf of Potter County. Even though it's in my purview to use my travel dollars, I did not do that because I think it is so important that the county really take their place. And what was heartfelt for me was as I looked across the board at these big metro areas and who is receiving these awards, Potter County is actually, and Amarillo, for the most part, is an anomaly. And so when I got into the room, there were about 1,000 participants there enjoying the events and the planning day. It was a whole session. And everyone kept saying, now where is Amarillo and where is Potter County? So for the Commissioners Court as a whole, I would like to say thank you to the three of you that have stayed by this plan. I do have just a little document, so maybe a little abnormal here, but I do want to read something if I may. I know that the neighborhood planning holistically has gotten some attention on a newsletter in particular. So I thought it was a good education piece. It would be remiss if I didn't use this opportunity as an education piece, but I drafted this. I did run my numbers by our county auditor, as we always do. But what I have on this is, and I'll read that for the audience, it's very short, but the interlocal holistically was signed in 2016 with a specific purpose to facilitate planning and community development in disadvantaged neighborhoods of the county. We, the county, started this with $75,000 and went to the City of Amarillo. And so this court, really did provide $75,000 the first year without knowing exactly what it would look like. Definitely a leap of faith of what we could do with our partnering governing body. Since then, the city has matched each year and has facilitated multiple plans. North Heights, which is in Precinct 4, the Barrio, obviously in Precinct 2, San Jacinto, which will be in Commissioner Kelly's precinct, and then Eastridge. These were the 4 originally slated. So in 2016, the project was taken to the city vote for some proposition voting, and many did fail that cycle, but one, very important in my opinion, did pass. So that allocated $2.5 million. I just say that because this started with $75,000 that the county took and has partnered with the city. Then of course, they're in charge of those, the allocation of the dollars. But the yearly $75,000, then I would still say we're fairly green. We're 4 years in now, maybe 3 years at this point. It gets a lot of attention in our budget, and since it was called out in the newsletter, I wanted to put this together because this is less than 1% of our budget, and it gets a lot of attention. And one thing that was good for me to research, because I should have been able to say this on the drop of a hat, and I could not, but there's about 120,000 people that reside in Potter County. 104,000 of those people live in the city proper. So 87% of our residents live in the city. So we get a lot of discussion on this court of, now what are we doing and how does that work and what do those partnerships look like? So for me, it was really good homework that I felt like I needed to do, because obviously I work hand in hand, and this is one of those projects. And so I would like to just use my time to say thank you to this Commissioners Court, because we all know we are one vote, and we are more effective together, and we're more effective when we bring each other up. So I have been blessed with some members that have allowed us to grow and to make some mistakes along the way, but to encourage us to grow. And I think what happens at the end is our communities benefit. So thank you, and I know it's not always easy, and it's often not easy, I'll just say that. But thank you, and AJ, for traveling here. She did make a travel trip to do this, because, you know, for the court, this doesn't happen often. But thank you.
Thank you very much. The next reading proclamation is the official Home Care and Hospice Month, to designate November as official Home Care and Hospice Month in Potter County, and to celebrate this year's theme of the right choice is right here. Someone here in the audience to do this, or no? No one? No? Shannon, do you know who? Campbell?
Campbell, I sent her the agenda.
Okay. So, do you want me to read this?
Sure.
Okay. 2018 Home Care and Hospice Month Proclamation. While many Texans suffering from illness or injuries receive quality care from dedicated healthcare professionals in hospitals or other facilities, some Texans need or prefer a more comfortable, intimate setting. Home care and hospice organizations meet this need by providing individualized and professional medical care and assistance to the elderly, disabled, and chronically ill. The simple yet powerful comfort of a home setting is a key feature of these services that offer excellent care that helps patients achieve a better quality of life. During the month of November, an awareness campaign is conducted to highlight home care and hospice as alternatives to hospitalization and other forms of institutional health care. Home care and hospice professionals help their patients live every day to its fullest, and it is important for their commitment and skill to be recognized and commended. At this time, I encourage all Texans to learn more about home care and hospice options and the invaluable contributions of all Texas healthcare providers. Now therefore we, the Potter County Commissioners Court, do hereby proclaim November 2018 as Home Care and Hospice Month, and encourage the support and participation of all citizens in learning more about the home care and hospice philosophy of care for the elderly, disabled, and the terminally ill. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused this seal to be affixed, signed this 13th day of November 2018. I think we all here in this room have been through this, or at least know someone who has been in hospice and needed this special care, so this is a good thing. All right. Yes.
I move we, Potter County Commissioners Court, designate November as official home health care and hospice month in Potter County.
Have a motion and a second on the table. Zero. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna skip over to, number 10 right now, because Chris is gonna have to leave here in a minute for Coach Blaine, so we're gonna get his stuff real fast before we get back into UK, sorry. I already talked to you about this, so don't be mad. Okay, number 10, equipment purchase, detention center to consider and act upon the purchase of a planetary mixer, model number SP80PL from Global Restaurant Solutions, Inc., total amount of $15,076. Chief?
It's a mixer, the last one was purchased in 2011, and we tried to repair it last year, and they can't get parts for it, so we need to replace it. The company said that they can't get the parts to repair it.
What line item does this come in the budget?
There is no budget for it, so we would need to include a budget transfer from the equipment repair and replacement fees to the detention center.
And what's the amount of that line item, Sharon?
We started the year with 100,000, and I don't think we used much of it.
So you're saying you would move from the equipment replace and repair account to a capital?
Any motion?
Move we approve the purchase of the mixer model number SP80PL. Global Restaurant Solutions, transferring money from repair and equipment repair and maintenance to detention. Capital.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Thank you. Number 11, equipment purchase information technology, to consider and act upon the purchase of 4 PowerEdge M640 server blades from Dell Inc. Unit cost of $7,745.22 for a total of $30,980.88. Funds are budgeted. Brandon, can you talk about that?
All right, it's just to replace some servers that we have that are end of life now.
End of life.
End of life.
Their
Dead.
servers.
Well, they're not dead yet.
Where,
But they're about to be.
Brandon, where are these servers? Are they at the Santa Fe building or are
Yes.
they at, okay. These are the ones you referenced during the budget process?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Any motion?
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of 4 PowerEdge M640 server blades. Funds budgeted.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, 5-0, thank you. Number 12, department inventory. To hear an update on ongoing physical inventory being performed by the purchasing department, and to update the court of the release of inventory responsibilities for facilities and maintenance inventory from Mike Head to Nicholas Wade, effective October 24th, 2018. Yes, Chris?
First, I want to thank all the department heads and the departments for allowing us to come in and count their stuff. I wanted to do a physical inventory just because we coming on as new and other new officials coming in, just wanted to make sure the inventory was spot on. There are a few left. Daniel has to do CSC, constables, we need to inventory you guys, IT department, and ongoing sheriff's office department. So hopefully we'll have this done before the end of the month.
Okay.
There might be a little lag just because the sheriff's department is so large, but it's really allowed me to work closely with IT and come up with some new procedures on what we do, how we do it. So it's been a good exercise.
What are those follow-up procedures? Like, I'd be interested to know what are things we're doing to improve, so outside of counting it, right, that's step one, getting everything documented, but what are?
There's no procedure when we transfer items.
Mhm.
So, there has to be a procedure. The right people need to be notified. So before it was just the purchasing department being notified, where IT would go, well, where is this at now? So we're working closely with IT mainly because of computers, because they're swapped around all the time. So that's interesting.
Thank you.
And then the next thing is, we did facilities right away. Mike had asked me to draft something up, taking him off the responsible list of the inventory and then putting it over to Nicholas. So that's what I drafted up. Their physical inventory is right on.
Okay, any questions? No? It's just an update on, okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
No action. Okay, now we're gonna go back to Kay Holland. Okay, Kay, you wanna come on up, we'll get started on your stuff. Number 4, insurance report, to recognize the insurance fund report.
There is nothing unusual on this report. I will, would like to make mention that we do have a large claim that's gonna be coming probably on the next, insurance claims funding report. A single claim in the amount coming in just a little over $64,000. And it's for a big one, so we'll be seeing that one shortly.
Questions on that, anybody? So recognize number 5, sick leave and vacation computation, to consider and decide upon appropriate computation of sick leave and vacation accrual for those employees working for 4 10-hour shifts per week. I thought we had already done this.
Well, we did holiday. Back May 14th, we visited the holiday pay, and it came to my attention last week that Road and Bridge has been, since May 14th, they've been accumulating sick leave at a rate of 10 hours per month. The sick leave policy actually speaks to that as the rate of 1 day per month for each month that the employee works for Potter County, and you should have that sick leave policy in your packets. It's my understanding, this all predates me again, but it's my understanding that the spirit and intent of the policy was to cap a day at 8 hours. And it makes sense to me that the same sick leave or vacation accruals should be accrued by any employee who works a 40-hour work week, whether it be by virtue of 4 10-hour days or 5 8-hour days, because they're still the same 40-hour work week is being worked by the employee. So in order to clarify that, it may take an amendment to the policy and procedure manual to do that, and I've talked to Tad about it, and he can draft some language to that effect, if that's what the court wants to do.
I think we're all on the same accord. That's basically deemed a little bit different than vacation.
It was holiday.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Tad,
we need to change the policy, because when you look at the policy, a day of sick leave accumulated under this policy means the number of hours you normally work in a day. So if they normally work 10 hours, I can understand why they thought that.
You know why they thought it,
If we mean
but
8
it's
hours.
40 hours, it's just 40 hours.
I know.
Okay.
But if you want it to mean 8 hours, it should say 8 hours, and not what you normally work a day.
and I think the intention in the policy was to accommodate part-time days, days less than 40 hours would be accumulated at, less than 8 hours. And that's why I say I think the spirit and intent of the policy is to cap it at 8 hours.
Chad, you don't see any issues in replicating
No, I don't, and I don't know how common the 410s was at the time the policy was drafted, but it can be easily changed and will be law.
Having drafted it, I can speak to that, and the fact of the matter is, yeah, the 410 shift was not, hadn't come to light when the policy was drafted. So it was drafted in mind with the cap, the top end would be an 8-hour day, but you're right, it was drafted with that language to account for part-time employees.
So we can change that
Sure,
to say,
it's your policy, you can change it whatever you want to say.
And just, I
What do
think,
we do, what do you do in the rears, where they give them, or asking for 10 hours? Do you allow that or not?
Well, typically, you can't award compensation, retroactive compensation, unless there's a legal liability for it. Because that would violate Article 3, Section 15 of the Texas Constitution. So this, whatever you do today has to be prospective.
so you're saying anyone that encumbered 10 hours, and I would agree with you, Commissioner Church, the way it read to me is what you normally work in a work day. I understand that interpretation easily, right, off the language. What you're saying is, if it's a policy that we institute a change, it's from today forward, not retro back for the employees that accrued the 10, if you will.
So then
Okay.
should 10-hour employees then go back and accumulate at 10 hours? Because I can speak to human resource. We've been accumulating based on an 8-hour workday, as that was described to us as the intended policy. And so we have been accumulating at only 8 hours, even though we are 10-hour employees.
What I can tell you is, that this court sits as the court that interprets that. Because it's your policy, you're the body ultimately empowered to determine what that really means today. As well as in deciding what you're going to do with county funds in addressing the policy and its interpretation. But again, if the court determines that it means 8 hours, you can't go back retroactively and pay people for 10-hour accruals.
Yeah, they've asked for 8 hours before, now you can't go back and say, take 2 more.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying whatever their precedence has been in their department, 8 or 10, right? Whatever that department interpretation has been, that stands based on their own interpretation, and then moving forward.
Whatever you decide stands.
Retrospect.
Right.
Okay. I heard that differently a minute ago. Okay.
But my only caveat is we can't retroactively compensate, pay people retroactively unless you agree. Up to this point, it meant 10 hours. Now it only means 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you decide that, then they would be able, I suppose, to take a vacation at 10 hour or their sick days or what they've accumulated already. But you couldn't go back and pay it because, okay, I want payment for my 10 hours of vacation. I don't think you can do that.
But sick leave is not paid out. when
Right,
someone
the
leaves.
vacation.
Right, so just as it pertains to sick leave,
Right.
I'm trying to stay very narrow just so I can understand the full scope of what that looks like.
Yeah.
I can see with the policy it's written today, what a normal workday would be, and I recognize the policy was drafted before the 10 hours existed. So I know why, I feel like I know why we're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we say, yep, we all interpret the spirit as 8 hours moving forward, what does that mean to
Yeah,
those?
and
prior to
I may have muddied the waters briefly talking about compensation, because that was my idea, was we were talking about money going out.
Yeah, just
and
sick
I wanted to
leave.
cap that off.
Yeah.
But in terms of interpreting the policy itself, you have the wherewithal to say, no, we've always meant 8 hours. I understand how you interpret, how departments may have interpreted that to mean something else. We're saying it means 8 hours, it meant 8 hours when it was adopted, it means 8 hours today, it means 8 hours going forward. Or you can decide something different in terms of how you're gonna apply it. Put aside the Constitution, since we're not talking about money going out the door.
Okay. Well, what does that mean to the employees before the decision? 'Cause I
It's
think-
whatever you decide.
Okay. Okay. And this, I don't know our purview, so if we say the spirit is 8 hours, change the language, make it 8 hours, that was the spirit, then that affects the people that have accumulated so far.
Yeah, this court has the jurisdiction to say it meant 8 hours from when we adopted it, it means 8 hours today, it means 8 hours going forward. Or you can say, okay, we understand it meant 10 hours up to today, now it means 8 hours. That is within your discretion.
And then Kate's follow-up question is, well, my department has done 8, so does that mean I need to go add 2 hours to everybody's sick time?
That will depend on what you decide.
Right, okay.
I just wanna say one thing, when we went to these 10 hours, I didn't think it was gonna cause this much of an issue, because we get a lot more work done in 10 hours. I explained that the last time. We have a lot of things to do prior to getting the job started, and then when these guys get sick, they're not sick for 8 hours, they're sick for 10 hours. So I based my decision on giving them 10 hours off the policy. Yeah, I know it wasn't the intent, but the intent should have been put in, just like on a vacation, you're paid 8 hours. The comp time, you're paid time and a half. Everything, vacations accumulated, you know, it gives you the specific number, and if that was the intent, then it should have been in the policy. I'm just going by what the policy stated. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But my guys work 10 hours, they get sick for 10 hours.
Well, when we use the full 10 hours. If someone's sick, they utilize the full 10 hours. It's just on the accrual side. In human resource, we accumulate 8 hours per month, so at the end of the month, we've got the same amount of sick leave and balance that any other 40-hour work week employee has.
So you understood it to be 8 hours, no matter what, even though you're working 10-hour days?
Right.
Okay.
And apparently, it's my understanding that Road and Bridge was accumulating at 8 hours until that May 14th day.
May 14th of this year, of 18?
When we discussed the holiday pay.
Okay.
And I went over that sick time, because I tried to get the holiday pay to the language the same as the sick time, that was a whole issue. And I brought it up several times.
Yeah.
I brought it up several times, but nobody said anything
How come
about
we
it.
didn't fix it then? I'm just curious.
You deferred it.
We said we deferred it.
It was
It was the
discussed,
same language.
it was discussed during the last very briefly.
So it's just made through. Now.
Got an easy fix.
What do you mean, is it easy to fix?
Just 8 hours.
Well, I feel like there's a consensus of, there's a spirit of the court of, it's 8 hours, right? I feel like we're there, it's more what to do with the employees from May forward. Like if we say it's interpreted 8 hours today moving forward, and we just, it is what it is to make the employees whole, or it's 8 hours and it should have been, so you take away the 2 extra hours that have been accumulated per employee in Road and Bridge. I feel like we're all saying 8 hours, kind of moving forward, but it's the retro.
Well, in the payroll system, the timekeeping system has been accumulating at 8 hours.
So the books.
It's a manual accounting that's been at the 10 hours since May 14th.
So many hours we're talking about. For this year.
May, June, July, August, September, October, November.
How many pay periods?
It's per month.
Oh, it's per month.
It's 2 hours per month for 8 months, you're talking about 16 hours
But that'd be per employee.
per employee.
And there's.
I've got 400 hours of sick time, and hopefully I don't ever get sick enough to teach
use
it,
them.
but it's there if I need it.
What if we just make it effective today? Just make it effective today for the 8 hours, understanding 8 hours as of today. Would that help your people?
Help them.
With
Well, they're still gonna be
taking-
sick for 10 hours, they're gonna be missing 2 hours. It's gonna take them,
But they're still only working 40 hours.
Yeah.
they are, but the policy states, okay, we'll move forward.
But we're gonna change
Correct,
the policy.
yeah. Well, if you change the policy, then I don't have a choice, so I have to.
But I think Judge's question is, what about if that would help the employees that were affected
That
for
were
May
effective
and
since
from now?
May, yeah.
If they were using their sick time, if someone was sick or.
Well, that's the issue, one of the guys was, had surgery, so we've been using it. That's gonna help them.
But to Judge's comment, if we make it effective today moving forward, that would help the employee that was in this
Yes,
transition,
yes.
right? It doesn't hurt an
That's gonna
employee
help.
lack of this
It's gonna help all of
interpretation.
them, yeah.
But if we make it today moving forward,
Well, that would help.
That's what I'm doing.
because I feel like there's not a lot of fiscal liability because we don't pay this out. I mean, obviously,
Right.
like,
Yeah, I've got
employees
400
are
hours.
sick and use the time when they're sick, we'll believe that, right? But we're not paying this out like vacation time.
So can we navigate with the K without, any matching?
Well, we would just have to make some manual adjustments to Road and Bridges, automated timekeeping system to account for the 10 hours from May 14th to present. To account for that, and then the system is set up for 8 hours per month, so it would automatically start accounting appropriately. That's what the court does.
Everybody good with that?
Do we need to make a motion to change that?
Yes. And I ask that you also address the vacation accrual in that motion so that we can have the same language in the vacation accrual, because if you notice, on the vacation policy, it accumulates in days. 5/6 of a day per month, 1 day per month, 1 1/4 days per month. And so if we can,
Say basically
address that language in both policies, that would be helpful to avoid any future concern with vacation.
Well, I'd like to see something written, but
Yeah, I think for
for-
purposes of your motion, the simplest motion would be for purposes of the sick leave and vacation leave policies, a day means an 8-hour day.
and then we can approve a policy.
For full-time.
For full-time
We'll update the policy and bring it back.
Right, for full-time employees.
You get that, Judy?
I'll stay it.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve, language change for sick leave and vacation, leave, that a full-time position, 1 day equates to 8 hours. And the appropriate policy and procedure manuals to be updated effective November 13th, 2018.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand.
So Tad, we'll
Thank you,
actually see
Scott.
this at the next court with updated to this language to approve the formal. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, number 6, County Choice Silver. Your report on County Choice Silver taking action.
Last Commissioners Court, I brought to this court the renewal for County Choice Silver, which is the Medicare supplement insurance that we offer through the county. Any retiring employee that's Medicare age, when they leave the county. Commissioner Murguia asked that I bring back a count of employees or a count of retirees that are currently on the County Choice Silver. We currently have 3 employees is all that are on this plan. The most recent one came on in 2004.
And, Kay, if I can add, the only reason I asked for an update on the court, this was an agenda item, if I remember right, the last court. And we were vetting with 2 different insurance payers, and United Healthcare was on that. We were trying to determine what would be the right fit.
Well, it would have all come through County Choice Silver. It was just 2 different options for County Choice Silver.
And
we opted to remain with the plan that we've been offering for some years.
And we just didn't have clarity on the court of how many people this affected in terms of retirees. Was this hundreds? And it was 3. So I think that was a good move back for us as court members. We don't always get that, so that's why I asked her.
It's totally their option.
Yes, it's totally their option, and we provide the information to every retiree that's leaving the county that is retirement age, when they leave the county. We don't, that it's Medicare age. We don't necessarily always provide the County Choice Silver information if it's a younger retiree that's eligible for retirement through the county, but it's not Medicare age yet. We mention it and verbally tell them about it, but then if they're Medicare age, they get information handed to them on the County Choice Silver.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that? Number 7, is it Navitus?
Navitus,
Navitus
yes.
Prescription Insurance. To hear a report from Brian Naser. Texas Association of Counties regarding Navitus prescription insurance coverage and take any action necessary.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
First, I'd like to thank you all for your membership in the pool. We greatly value that membership. With the county's renewal in 10-1 as a self-insured plan in the pool, with that 500 employees and 1,000 lives, you're one of the 10 largest groups in the pool today. This current plan year, we added 4 additional groups to the pool. That brings us to a total of 222 counties and district entities and almost 50,000 lives. The strength in that size allows us to negotiate competitive rates, and it allows you to take advantage of some of the pooling benefits that go along with that as a self-insured plan. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to the memo that we provided and answer questions about that. One of the changes that we did make is we negotiated a new PBM contract. We started that process nearly a year ago when we hired a PBM consultant, and we went through the RFP process. So I'd like to talk just at a high level about that RFP process and the changes. I know that you are very familiar with that, having gone through an RFP yourself in the selection of that pharmacy benefit manager that we're administering. But just to touch on some of the reasons for the need for that RFP and the change, one is to curb the dramatic rate of inflation in pharmacy costs. we're seeing pharmacy costs anywhere between 9 to 12%. For Potter County, your pharmacy paid is 28% of your total plan paid. So you're at 1/3. If we're seeing a 9% pharmacy increase, then that impacts your plan 3% overall. It was something that we needed to do, and to more actively manage that pharmacy trend, we needed to create a formulary, and we needed to be more actively engaged in the clinical programs. And we needed to eliminate some contract loopholes. And I wanted to touch on some of the contract changes that we were able to make with this new RFP. We went from a traditional arrangement, which means there's full transparency. We're aware of the full cost and all monies that are being passed back and forth from manufacturers to the PBM. We were able to put in airtight contract definitions for brands, generics, for specialty drugs, new to market drugs. And we were able to ensure that with the rebates, that 100% of the rebates are passed through back to the group. And not just rebates, but any revenues defined between the manufacturer and the PBM. The PBM has the ability, has 30 different revenue buckets, and they just named one of those rebates. And with this new contract, we're able to make sure that all revenues that are passing from that manufacturer back to the PBM comes back to the pool and to our self-funding groups. We made sure that we had customization rights. That was something that we needed for our self-funding groups like Potter County, so that Potter County could decide independently if you wanted to follow, for example, the formulary that we have in place for the pool, or if the pool is implementing a clinical program, whether or not you want to follow that clinical program. So you have, with the new contract, those customization rights. We had the ability with this transparency to see the true net cost of the drug. So at the end of the day, we knew drug by drug what the cost of that is. With a traditional contract, without a pass-through arrangement, we didn't know at the end of the day the net effect of that drug. And so we couldn't check to say if a PBM was making a formulary change, if it was in the best interest of our members and the plan. We made sure that we had audit rights, we had the right to carve out. So at the end of the day, if there's a member that's taking a high-cost specialty drug, and we know that we could get it at a lower cost somewhere else, through, say, for example, a 340B arrangement, which is federal subsidy dollars. The PBM doesn't get federal subsidy for 340B, so the pharmacy could. So we were unable to go to that pharmacy and have them administer that lower cost drug. We now have that ability with this new contract. We have the right to renegotiate, and we have term rights with or without cause within 90 days, so we have some leverage behind the ability to negotiate on an annual basis. So let me pause right there. So any questions about the contract and the changes of moving from a traditional arrangement to a pass-through arrangement?
You may have said this, in a minute, but 340B is that?
340B is a federal subsidy program. We take advantage of it for hemophiliac patients, which requires a medication, and when they take it, they live a perfectly normal life. Without it, obviously they could lead to death. That drug cost the group, self-insured group, $800,000 a year. Through a 340B arrangement with federal subsidy dollars, that reduces the cost of that drug down to $600,000. So we were able to save the county, the self-insured plan, $200,000 annually by taking advantage of the 340B arrangement. When we had our prior contract, it said everything had to go through that PBM, and we did not have the ability to carve out. So then, if I can move to the next step I had, why did we choose Navitus? And the first was that, as I spoke to, Navitus' business model is and has always been a pass-through arrangement. They never played in the traditional spread arrangement where they kept monies, kept revenues. That was important to us. Their only revenue is in administrative fees. So we pay them to administer per script, in this case per employee per month. This first year, the pool decided to pay those administrative fees. We wanted to demonstrate and feel like at the end of the year, we're gonna demonstrate that the savings through this pass-through arrangement is gonna be more than offset any administrative fees that you would pay. Navitus has a statewide footprint. They're a PBM with the state Texas Medicaid program, so they're in every county, which is important to us. We have 3 pharmacies that currently are not participating in the plan across the state. Again, I talked about the ability to customize, to develop formularies, or even to narrow the network. Potter County chose as a self-insured plan to say we want to narrow that pharmacy network and steer members to a certain place to drive deeper discounts. We have the ability to do that. So our interests were very aligned with Navitus as a non-profit organization and a pass-through group. So the next, well, let me stop. So questions about Navitus. I know Navitus is not a common PBM. It's not, you know, the Optums, the UHC, the Caremarks, or Express Scripts of the world. Any questions about Navitus or their makeup? Okay, so why did our members' drug costs change? With the PBM change, you're gonna get a formulary change. That's inevitable. But we also now have the ability to be able to create and customize that formulary. And the idea behind the formulary is to steer members to the most clinically effective and lowest net cost drug. What that means is if there is, and this is not defined by us, formularies are set by the PBM. They have a committee of physicians and pharmacists that develop the formulary. And they make decisions also based off of the FDA. The FDA says whether or not a drug is chemically or therapeutically equivalent. So when the FDA says there is one, then in that case we look at the cost of the drug, and if that cost is the lowest cost and equivalent, then it goes on tier 1. So what happened is we shifted formularies from a traditional sense of generic, preferred, and non-preferred to now tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, because you now could have a high-cost generic that you don't want to be steering members to. You could have an alternative that is just as an alternative therapeutic equivalent. It could save the plan money. So I included in the memo a couple examples where we had generic drugs that moved now from that lowest cost, $5 copay, to a tier 2 or a tier 3, or non-covered at all. I provided those examples there. And again, we only moved to generic when the FDA said there's a therapeutic equivalent exists, that there is alternatives. I think another good example, and I don't think it's in the handout that you have there, that is combination drugs, anti-diabetic combination drugs, where there's 2 drugs compounded together, convenient for the member to take. That drug costs $144. When you take it separately, it costs $14, $8, and $6. It is an inconvenience to the member to now have to take 2, but you can see the cost savings. So the reason why I'm here, and I feel very passionate about the changes that we made, and we needed to make these changes. We right up front reduced our pools renewals by 10%. That's a significant amount. As I mentioned, your pharmacy costs are 28% of your total cost, and we're seeing those pharmacy costs continue to increase. So we needed to manage this better in serving our members, because we hear continually that from our courts that we represent, that they're having to make a change because they can't afford the renewal and the cost increases. And we're tired of shifting those costs to our members, and what can you do to help manage that? There's a lot of things we're doing on the back end to manage the cost. Tightening up this contract, getting an RFP out and selecting a PBM is one of those that we said we're reducing the cost straight up across the board by 10%. We expect that to keep pharmacy trend flat for next year's renewal, which could have another 3 to 10% impact on your renewal next year. But why I'm here is because we failed. we failed to clearly communicate that benefit change, if you will, of moving from generic, preferred, to non-preferred, to now tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So the formulary that we distributed and made available to Kay for her enrollment meetings, the formulary shows those tiers. If you looked up a drug, whether you're looking up, different formularies, you look it up and you'll see the tiering change. But what we did not do is that we didn't effectively say, this means now that you may have generics and they're no longer on tier 1. This means now that there could be a brand on tier 1 and why that is. And we failed, and I say failed, to make that change in your benefit summary, on your benefit highlights. So this enrollment period, when your members were being told about the PBM change, they still saw the old language, generic, preferred, and non-preferred. And they went to the pharmacy on 10/1 and got a generic drug that now they were having to pay a $30 copay because it moved from that tier 1 to tier 2. So the other thing that we failed to do is we sent clinical transition letters to our members. If a member was being disrupted because of the formulary change, they were no longer going to be able to take the drug, it was no longer going to be covered. We got a clinical letter that said, here's the drug you're taking, it's no longer covered, here are the alternatives. We consciously decided not to send that letter to members impacted by the tier change. The rationale was that that drug's not going away, they're still going to they're going to get it. Well, clearly, in hindsight, that was a bad decision. Those members were disrupted. Those members should have been applied to the same grandfather that we had for a member who was taking the drug, say a brand drug that's now no longer covered, and we're giving them a grace period till the end of the year, up to 90 days, and we're telling them what the alternatives are. We should have applied that same process to the generics. Members who are taking the existing generic drug that's moving to tiers. And so I'm coming to you today, one, to provide some options on how we can manage the member disruption. And I provided those options there. I would recommend option 1, which is treating your members who are taking an existing generic medication and giving them to the end of the year to continue to take it at that lowest tier 1 copay cost, giving them time to go to their doctor to talk about the alternatives that could exist at tier 1 and keep that lower copay.
And by end of year, you mean end of calendar year, not
End of
fiscal?
calendar year.
Thank you.
12/31. And get clinical transition letters out to these members. So if we, based on the board's action, the court's action today, we could get clinical transition letters out somewhere late November, which will give the members a letter that says they're taking this drug. Now it's tier 2, tier 3 are not covered, and now here are the options. And have some time to go to their doctor and have that conversation with them.
Okay, have we heard much from members about this disruption?
Not a lot, but we have heard from a handful, probably 5 or less. My thought process is that we're just now getting into this plan year. And so those employees that have 90-day scripts, it'll start hitting, and we will start hearing more and more from employees.
There will be a 3 phases. Members were probably stockpiling some medications knowing that there was a change. Members, may have had a 90-day, so that, maybe had a few refills in October, you'll have some in November, you'll have some in December. So the noise you heard in October, you're gonna hear again in November, you're gonna hear again in December. As a result of that.
What's your thoughts, Peter? What's your thoughts?
I agree with Brian that of the options that are listed there, option 1 to me is the best option, because what it does, it maintains the integrity of the formulary as created and presented by Texas Association of Counties from 12/31 and moving forward, but it gives employees the ability between now and 12/31 to receive their medication at that tier 1 copay and have the opportunity to discuss with their physicians during that time frame whether or not to change the medication or to be expecting that higher tier copay as they move into January and moving forward. But it maintains the integrity of the formulary all the way across the board. The other options that are listed there, the option 2, and the 2 scenarios within option 2, to me don't make a lot of sense because, but you would end up with 2 employees potentially working side by side on the same medication halfway through the year, and one paying $30 and one paying $5, and that doesn't make sense.
Okay, the projected amount of 1,900, where would that come from? What?
It would come through the insurance fund as the claims are processed.
Okay.
The claims cost.
Yeah, it's just a straight claims cost that would come through the prescription invoices.
You sit on the committee, is that right, Commissioner Church and Commissioner Bell?
I think it makes sense for financially, because 6-month grandfathering is $5,700. And the other one's $9,000, so I think that's a good option. I think within a month, we'll be able to contact our doctors.
The other thing that we will do is we will send, I'm calling it an apology letter, but it's a benefit communication that explains this tiering change. And I apologize for the miscommunication of not having anything. So, we would want to send that to every member with the county so that everybody has, those that aren't taking a generic today will at least know this tiering benefit. And it's important to understand because we're also learning that, the physician community, has the mindset, there's 1,000 lives, because this physician community has a mindset is, you need this, but I'm gonna write you this generic so that you can say it had the lowest copay cost. Well, that generic may no longer be the lowest cost to a member, so we need our members to understand that tiering, to have that additional conversation with the prescribed doctor.
And Kate, do we have any planned communication going out, and I would say in layman terms, right, to give it an example? If you take this drug, this is kind of the impact of that. Do we have anything like that planning, going out, even email,
We can put something together. They'll be getting a disruption letter from Texas Association of Counties that explains it.
I think that's something that we could, the layman's terms, so, and I think that's something that we can work in part of that benefit communication apology letter, and Kate can, Kate will get a chance to see the contract.
Yeah, because I think generic, preferred, non-preferred, tier 1, 2, 3 it's just nomenclature. What does that mean for me and the drug that I'm using, right?
I think real hard
Yeah.
life examples. I think, this Synthroid example is a perfect example. It's hard to understand why a brand would be preferred, but when you know the details of it, it makes sense.
It's very easy to understand.
These letters go to their home.
Yes, they go to the home.
How do we, did it look like something you wanted to open? That's my concern, you get a lot of stuff, it just looks like an advertising.
During the open enrollment meetings, we really drove home the need to watch for communication from Texas Association of Counties or Navitas or Blue Cross Blue Shield, and make sure you open any mail that you get from those folks, because your prescriptions may be impacted.
The envelope said, want to retire early?
That's we do produce communications in-house, so we can put something on the outside of the envelope that may get their attention.
And just as a matter of record, I have one of the medications that's affected by this, and it took one phone call yesterday. I'm on this, I need this, and within an hour I had an automated thing saying my prescription was ready. So
But you're an expert and you know the terminology, so for a normal patient, that's why I always kind of hone in on, just layman terms, help me understand what that means. If the letters are easy to read, that may accomplish that. So.
And that terminology was just, I take this, I need to take this instead. Yeah. It was as simple as that.
That's what the letters.
And with the change, we went 24/7. Our PBM now is available to answer the call except for on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And it has been we haven't had complaints with the customer service and the ease of getting through the phone prompting, which is a limited.
Yeah. And let me also just say, if we've had anyone that's been affected by this tier change and paid the higher tier cost already, Brian assures me that those, will go back and do a refund for those employees, through the 12/31 date.
I make a motion, oh, I'm sorry. Go
Do you
ahead.
have any questions? No, I was gonna make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the recommendation, option 1, for the grandfathered option for impacted members through 12/31/18, and send clinical transition letters, funds to come from the insurance funds claim.
Second, you got it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the follow-up and your attention to that detail, because it's easy to just say, well, that's a transition, and it just needs to shake out, but there are real people affected. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, where are we? Let's see.
I have item 13.
Number 13, vacant lots owned by Potter County on Jackson Street, to hear a report on possible development and make any decision necessary. Sally, are you here? Is your husband here today?
Yeah.
Just you, I don't know Gary?
No, just me, just the salary.
Yes.
Okay. I was approached, of course, we own those two lots there, in that block, Jackson and Kent, 900 block of Jackson. And I was approached about whether or not we'd be interested in selling those lots. Of course, I have no authority to say yes or no, so I thought that it'd be good if someone would come and just explain, because the question I ask, is there a plan? And evidently there's a plan in the works, so Sally also has some other information to give us.
Well, Judge Tanner, Commissioners, thank you so much for putting me on the agenda and giving me another opportunity to speak with you guys. As you know, Gary and I own 3/4 of a block on 10th Street between Van Buren and Jackson. And a couple of things have occurred since I last spoke to you guys. Number one, the Firestone project is completed. It's been very successful, very well received, and we're just thankful that the people of our community have embraced it and want to live downtown and are very, very happy. So we kind of gotten that one off of our plate, which makes us look for the next opportunity. But also, another thing that happened to that property was the fire that burned the center section. So it's like, now we're at a point where we really need to demo that, and it's like, okay, what can we do with it? And I've got, do you mind if I pass this out? These are, this just shows the property so you can see exactly what we own and what the county has. And we wanted to request your consideration again for selling those parking lots. They're number 9 and 10 on the back by Knight and Jackson. So you can get a better reference point. We own 1 through 7. And if we could acquire the whole block, it just gives a greater opportunity for our community. This was our original rendering back in when we bought this property. I think there's a black and white, smaller picture. Of course, now this center section has burned down, and so this is not a viable option. Our original plan was to definitely make it a historic preservation project, but quite frankly, the property is in such disarray at this point, we're not sure if that's possible or if we're gonna have to start fresh. So there's, we definitely want to focus on housing. We think that's important with some type of mixed use underneath. But until we really have our footprint, it's hard to invest more in architectural renderings. But this third page 2 shows a concept that we're really excited about. And it's something they're doing in Austin. It's the Royal Blue Grocery. We know that there's a lot of demand for, grocery. I don't, you know, it's kind of the chicken and the egg, what our density is, but this is kind of like a local neighborhood market, and we've reached out to them. We'll definitely be looking for some kind of partnership or investment for, this next project. But we wanted to request one more time your consideration to, sell those lots. It's not like they're a hot property right by the ball field, which definitely has more demand. But with the success of the Firestone project moving downtown, we think it would really be a benefit to the community. And we think if we can acquire more of that block, it'll benefit the county and the city, and it takes 2 years from the time to start. I mean, we learned that with Firestone, so I really think it's a lost opportunity if the city thinks it's in their best interest to hold on and sell it later.
Commissioner, you serve on that, a number of committees. What are your thoughts in as far as long range planning of what the county has as far as that property and what they look at in the future? Or is it something that, I wouldn't say that since it's so far away from the infield, it's not going to be good.
So it really, a couple of things there, it sits in the tiers 1 footprint is really where it sits. After the last time Ms. Jennings came to the court, I did go with her and tour, and I went to tour the Firestone building, and so I would agree with you in terms of not on the immediate cusp of downtown. The stance I've traditionally taken is, like, if any of us owned a piece of land downtown, right, like, it's again, the chicken or the egg, and I know Commissioner Church's concern, and all of our concern is we don't want a land bank if we don't have a use for that land, so that's the other piece of the conversation. I think where the discussion is if we do have an intent to sell, and B, when that would be, and C, what would that price point to be. So I think personally, Tad, this might be an executive session, if we feel that we're close to that point, because it is land and there is negotiation involved, if that fits in that purview, if there's a general consideration. But I know this has continued to come up. I do understand we definitely don't wanna have land to just have the land, but it is we are in a unique scenario because we own land where there is quite a bit of development, and there are incentives for builders to go there. So we hold this for, to benefit our taxpayers, and we would govern that just like you would for land you own yourself, right? When is your own tipping point or price point to sell?
So as you put your ear to the rail, what are you doing?
I'd like to go to executive session. I don't know.
Let me just say a
it's
few
land,
things.
to be very honest, but.
Since I serve on tiers 1, there is a lot of interest in 10. And tiers 1 basically was formed for a lot of reasons, but one of the major reasons was to get the 3, what do they call them, our anchor projects done: the hotel, parking garage, and the main pit. Those 3 are done. And so we have a lot of the development downtown except for residential and the grocery. Because people who live downtown don't have any place to go unless they go out to buy groceries. So this project really does have some potential, I think, a lot of potential, something that's needed, something that Tiers has said this is what we want to see happen now, not all these other types of developments. And so I hope we can encourage this, and I know I can just tell you right now that we can't just say we want to sell it to you.
Oh, yeah.
We have to go through a process of selling property. And so we'll have to do that if we decide that's what we want to do.
Right, and that's completely understood, and quite frankly, we can't get it kind of reasonably. I know that's not very good. they're not affordable to do what we'd like to do, because we wanna focus on housing, but more at market rate. The, Firestone ended up above market rate because of the,
Historical pieces that way.
yes. So it'll be a business decision on can we restore that, which that would be our ultimate goal. If not, we'll start from scratch, but it'll be 2 years. I mean, it's not like you can put something up, and that's why it's like before we really came up with the final plan, we wanted to see if the county would consider it. Because if you do like two, on this piece, if we build here and that's walled off, that might actually increase the value. So,
Well, I applaud your efforts. I have been to the projects and, in many phases of the project and went, oh my, did you know it was gonna turn into this? And she said, no, I did not know it's gonna, but I mean, it is beautiful. 10th Street is a main corridor, that has been identified in the Barrio neighborhood plan as well. So 10th Street is a main corridor. I'm not surprised that's where you're looking. That's definitely what we're hearing, right, is that the land, it's the inner circle to the 3 projects. As the closer you get, the more expensive that land is, and you go out in terms of the wave effect, right?
and one thing too is that we've talked with the city and also Tiers to get their input on doing a traffic study there, because we think it's important if we can slow that traffic down and put 10th kind of on a road diet, that's gonna also be beneficial to the walkability, livability of that corridor going towards the MPEB and the primary downtown.
What is the proposed cost of this? I mean, as far as housing, ballpark?
I can't really say, because it depends. This was our original rendering, but if we end up going and, you know, this was much smaller with mixed use plans.
You can't say, that's okay.
I just don't wanna be misleading or say something I don't know. This, if we go with more this type concept, if we have to start over, then it would probably be 3 or 4 stories high with, mixed use retail, grocery market that helps really everyone that lives there to have those types of services, because we think the primary retail is gonna be in that parking garage where all of that is. So we don't wanna compete with that. We wanna have a separate, close neighborhood. And one thing that our residents of Firestone love is that it is a quiet, great community with interesting people. It's not, I mean, our demographic goes from 20s to 60s. It's all over the map. You know, very, very interesting people, and I think that they enjoy that. So it would not be geared towards, specifically a younger, more boisterous crowd, shall I say. But then also too, with WT, just catty cornered across, you know, we're working with, their small business, center to help us do additional studies on grocery, housing, what the types are, what's the right size, what's the right price range. Because we've had such great response, we definitely want to get a price point that we can bring more people downtown.
Thank you so much. This tells me more than I've known the last 2 years, so thank you.
Any other questions? Again, thank you for your time, I really appreciate it.
Is this something we need to, pursue it further in another meeting?
I can do an agenda item for next meeting.
We're gonna get a good session. Okay, number 14, Crossfire Recreation Area, to hear a brief discussion on progress and discuss our commitment to the project.
I'm gonna cut this shorter than I planned because of the time, but I just want to tell you that I've been meeting with the group, BLM. BLM is the Bureau of Land Management who owns this property. It's about 12,000 acres. 15 miles north of town. And, their plan is to turn it into a recreational, multi-use, in other words, non-vehicle multi-use. Hiking, bike riding, and horseback riding. Potentially overnight camping. The problem is that it's landlocked, and so we have to have a road into it. I guess there's a map up if you want to get your. Anyway, Mr. Childers, Miles Childers, has granted an easement through his property. And if you see the Highway 87, which would be 287, there'll be a road that comes off of that, just north of the river, and then we have to make a road into the recreational area. It's about a 2-mile road, and one of the problems is we have to go under the railroad tracks. There's currently a trestle there, but it's a 1-laner, and so that's a big expense to make that trestle bigger. The city's really interested and wants to be partners. The grant that this BLM is proposing is through the Federal Highway Administration, and the partnership has not been made official, and nothing would be made official until it came to us here. But the city and the county, the way the proposal's going, would be partners as far as making the application, because the federal government can't be a applicant for a federal grant, so it has to be a local entity. So anyway, there's going to be further meetings. There's going to be eventually probably a request to join partnership officially with the city, and then when everything is finished, hopefully we can have some sort of figure of what it might mean as far as money. We're kind of up against some deadlines. February of 19, the applications become available. May 19th, or May of 19, which is like 3 or 4 months later, the application has to be in. So within the next few months, you'll be learning more about this and have a request come to you. There's some interesting options on financing of our share, and but nothing has been done on that at all. We'll just keep you informed as we go. If there are, yeah. The judge and I serve on this committee, so if you get 3, then we'll have to vote.
Commissioner, could we get maybe a link to where the grant that we're applying for, or even the proposal, just the draft? I recognize you two are on the committee, so I don't want to have to go through the process of posting all that, just to dig into the weeds, no pun intended, a little bit, understand what that proposal looks like. Just very different than we used to like to learn a little more.
I can give you, yes, I can give you something. It won't be the exact proposal or application, but.
Okay, thank you.
What kind of shared cost are we looking at for the county?
We can't tell you. We tell you we'll have to. No.
I mean, like,
It could,
the road.
I mean, not for the, that the can, how are we gonna say this? If we were the only entity interested in partnering, applying, it could be upwards to 5 million. But being partnering with the city, we hope we can share that. And, doesn't have to be paid up front. There's all kinds of different, alternatives, I guess you could say.
Would there be grants available for this program?
There is a grant.
But that's our cost.
That's our,
of the grant.
that's
We
our,
don't know.
Oh, we don't know, okay.
Not for sure yet.
that would
We're
be
still
our
looking
portion.
into,
That's the high end.
That's the high end,
Still
that's
looking
very
into,
high
yeah,
end.
Sticker shot.
Individuals too that would.
And then in the end, we probably end up having to maintain the road, but that will be the least expensive of the whole deal.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, number 15, Potter County Extension Office, do you have an update on Extension Office?
We got Miss Clayton here.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are y'all? How are you? Okay, great. Proud to be here. Yeah, thank you for allowing us to be here, and allowing the Extension Office to come and represent. We do work very, very independently, and so it's nice to kind of come and share with the community what we're doing, to kind of keep you updated. We try to keep you updated through social media, and just try to get all of what we've accomplished out to the community as best as possible. So I am the Better Living for Texans Extension Assistant for the Better Living for Texans grant program. So if I say BLT for short, it's a lot easier than having to say the whole thing out loud. It's kind of a mouthful sometimes.
Maybe hungry.
Yeah. So I've been in this position for about a year. July 6th is my year mark. So I teach a wide range of nutrition classes as far as just basic nutrition, food safety concepts, as well as physical activity, and I've dabbled in a little bit of gardening as well. It's very new, but I just kind of want to touch on and update you on what we're doing with our Walk Across Texas program, because it has been very successful and has been growing year after year. And so back in the spring, and so I'll kind of touch on what Walk Across Texas program is. It is a physical activity program where we promote physical education, increasing fruit and vegetable consumption. It can be for adults, but I really targeted children. So back in the spring, San Justino Elementary was our first kind of guinea pig to go through this program to see how successful it has been, and to see how successful it could be. And so they walked for a total of 8 weeks. Where I come in, and it's kind of up to the school to keep track of those steps that they take. They are given pedometers to track those steps to make it a little bit easier. They aren't as effective as they could be, so that's kind of been something we've been working on, trying to get College Station in the state to kind of work on the pedometers, because I've had a lot of troubles with those. We supply them with resources to help them track their steps, to make it a little bit easier on them. I also provided incentive items, just fun little giveaways to the kids, to the teachers, to anybody who kind of participates, to making this collaboration more effective. Like to recognize those individuals who helped us throughout the past 8 weeks. So throughout those 8 weeks, we have a midway kickoff celebration event, and midway, and then the last one is a celebration. So with that, starting with San Justino back in the spring, the kickoff celebration event, I do an educational presentation called the Rethink Your Drink Model, where I talk about sugary beverages, how much sugar children are consuming every single day based off of just the things that they consume every single day. So just a tidbit on that. 2 12-ounce sodas every day for a month. 12-ounce sodas are very big, and it's very easy to consume, especially for children who are getting home and then they have a soda for dinner that night. 2 12-ounce sodas every day for an entire month. You'll end up consuming about 5 pounds of sugar. And so, all those unused calories in your body stores as fat, which turns into about 2.4 pounds of fat. And so that's just kind of a tidbit that I share with the students, kind of bring it down to their level so they can actually physically see. I provide visual tools. I actually glued together sugar cubes, 570 sugar cubes to show you the equivalent to 5 pounds of sugar, just a visual so they can actually physically see what they're consuming and what that does to the body. So I provide that educational tidbit there. And the next time at our midway, we go for 4 weeks, I meet back up with them, kind of a motivational thing. And I also talk about my plate, the 5 main food groups that we should be eating on a daily basis, how much of those food groups we should be eating, limiting our protein and our grain intake, and increasing our fruit and vegetable intake. So just kind of what I do and what I bring to this walk across Texas. So again, back in the spring, we started with San Jacinto. I believe they walked around over 1,000 miles, which was great. And then we started back up. We just finished last week with our, we actually included 2 more schools onto that. So we had San Jacinto Elementary, Margaret Wills Elementary, and then Forest Hill. And so all 3 of those schools, they kind of, they really did compete for those 8 weeks to see who could walk the most miles. And it turned out Forest Hill, they ended up walking over 14,000 miles. And that was 4 4th grade classrooms. They even had the less of the 2 other schools. I think they only had roughly about, they had like 10 less students than any of the other schools. And somehow everybody else had the waters. They did amazing with that. And so I also partnered with the Amarillo Downtown Kiwanis Club. And I spoke with them, met up with them, and really Tracy with No Boundaries. And so talked with her and gave her this idea, what I wanted, and I was asking her if the Amarillo Downtown Kiwanis Club could donate something, whether that be as little as $500. We were kind of aiming around $500 to $1,000 for the winning school to have. And so they agreed, and they donated $1,000 to the winning school, and so that was Forest Hill. So the 4th, and it's going to the 4th grade classroom. I believe they are taking their 4th graders to Cedar Canyon, so that $1,000 is going to help pay for them to travel to Cedar Canyon to get that bus expense, and to get all the kiddos down there. I do want to recognize Deidre Carver. She works for Superior Health. She's also a Master Wellness Volunteer through the extension program that she did. And she's been a very helpful, not only volunteer, but just a helpful collaboration and partnership with Superior. She came with me to every single session, every single marketing event that we had to do the promotion. So she was very helpful with that. And she also supplied banners. All the kiddos got T-shirts. Every school, every 4th grader got a T-shirt. They all say, "Keep calm and walk on." Logos on the back, the No Excuses logo, and so it was a very successful. I was very happy with how this turned out. Like I said, last spring we had like 1 school, we added 3 more schools on. So I'd like to see it get bigger and bigger. I know with the with our pedometers, we had an issue with them. Hopefully, we can resolve that and make it a lot easier and just have that program grow, because it really is successful and the kiddos were so appreciative, and it was just a fun experience to get to educate and to see that their accomplishments with that. So I think that was everything that kind of wrapped up into Walk Across Texas. If you'll have any other questions about other projects I do, it's just the one project that I'm working on. Like I said, we just finished up. Well, I do appreciate you letting us come here and not take up so much of your time. We do, the extension office really appreciates getting to come out here and talk about what it is that we do. So if you have any questions.
With the Christmas break coming up, do you have plans for them during the break?
Not during the break, and so the grant that I work under specifically, it is for adults. Is where I try to mainly reach. I kind of got to dabble in educating the kiddos a little bit, but unfortunately with the grant program I work under, it's kind of, you come and teach through the curriculum, and once the curriculum is done, you kind of don't go back. That's the unfortunately with the grant that I work under, but I do know in the springtime, the after school program with the 4-H, and Rachel Berry can talk more on that whenever she comes and talks with you. I know she's really trying to get in with the schools. We just hired a new program assistant as well, so she's going to be helping out with that.
But one thing I would add, Judge, is I have had the opportunity to work with Miss Payton and see her grow, and believe it or not, she's very, very quiet when she started. And so as we have our monthly meetings to hear what's coming, it's always very energetic to see our young leaders growing and growing professionally. So she is working through some really tough barriers in getting contacts with the right people to develop these type of programs. So I'm very thankful for her. I can only imagine probably how nervous she was just to come talk to the Commissioner's Court. I know it's intimidating for us too, and we're on the other end of it. But I applaud all the work that you're doing, and I know they're long, hard days. So thank you for doing that on behalf of our whole county and our citizens.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your time.
You don't want to be on a committee, Commissioner?
Okay, number 16, local government celebration.
This will be very quick, Judge. Main thing is there is a naming ceremony going on today, in case you haven't heard. There's the naming of the team, and I have no inside information. So other than that, that's the only. That's all I did.
17, tax increment reimbursement volunteers 2.
This one will also be very quick. We did meet on October 25th, and just two things I want to update the board on, specifically is that we have now formulated to an executive committee. We meet weekly on Fridays with the city, so not only do we have this monthly meeting for Tiers 2, but we are meeting weekly to start to work through with the developers, see what their plans are, and just, really generate more speed. But those that sit on the executive committee with me are Chris Reed, John Atterbury, Dean Frigo, and Helen Burton, and then myself. Wes is now been the city resource, and so we work with Wes and Andrew and Chris Alberti quite a bit at the city. And then the only other update I have on that, Judge, is the Big Texan family, they're at their Starlight Ranch. They are looking at expanding some sand pit volleyball courts. So that is kind of new partnership with the Parks and Rec at the city. So what that really looks like mainly, I think, for the upcoming year, but the sand volleyball courts that I know of are Southwest Amarillo, I want to say Southwest Park, if I have that correct. So it's a new venue that is in the making, and there's discussions happening with the city, so that might be new to come.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Number 18, resignation. It's 11 phone calls. Resignation of County Court Law Number 2 to recognize the resignation of Judge Pamela Sermon as County Court Law Number 2 Judge, effective November 30, 2018, and taking action. She sent me an email, after coming to talk to me about this, just saying that she's gonna take her whole month off, month of December. She has, made arrangements for, Judge Gleason to come in 6 days, I think, is that right? Carry 6 days during the month of, November during the month of December to work for her, just some things that she needed to get done. But she is, just transitioning to her new position across the street, so she wanted to resign.
What, is there, just because this doesn't happen often, Judge, is there a administrative process that happens outside of making sure the dollars are there for the judge that will sit in? We just accept it? What does that look like?
The administrative judge appointed Judge Gleason to sit in for her. She went to him first. And then, we have money in her, she has money in her budget for visiting judge. And she very rarely uses.
Yes, she's a good student.
Okay, so I'm just recognizing.
This is an HR concern. So is that a stop and a start in employment? Does any of that matter?
Yeah, it'll be a stop and then re-employ in her district courts, insofar as the paperwork that we fill out on the district court judges.
And she's fully aware of that whole process?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's fully aware. She's already taken out her new insurance, $1,400 a month, so she's all good with it. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, number 19, finally, Jason, we can get you done. Veterans Mental Health Grant, to discuss and take any action necessary regarding the seeking of a Veterans Mental Health Grant, including taking action on a resolution by the Potter County Commissioners Court authorizing submission of a grant application to the Texas Veterans Commission under the 2019-2020 Veterans Mental Health Grant. Designating employees of the district attorney to act as a county's authorized official in all matters pertaining to the county participation.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes, in this grant program.
I couldn't figure out any way to get it any lower than
I
that.
know.
Come to you today to talk to you. Everybody knows the DA's office has a felony diversion program for mental health, not only on the civil side, but also on the veteran side. And, we're looking to get a grant that if we obtain one, would start July 1st, 2019, and go for a year. The people that have been behind us are the same ones. It's my office, and and then Jason Howell is in charge of it. Denise Heffley is gonna be in charge of the counseling. Veterans Affairs, TPC, WTAMU, that hurts me to say that. I'm WTSU. But particularly in the Master's Counseling Department is backing us. And that's where we're getting the vast majority of our interns. The Sheriff's Department's on board, Sheriff Thomas is. The judges are, Judge Woodburn in particular. is very interested in the program. The defense attorneys are, and then what we found out about this grant is from PRPC. So I'd like to thank John Keel and Lori Gunn, sorry, Lori Gunn. I was thinking about the money, for helping us with the grant application and actually letting us know about it. We're gonna be asking for $150,000. That'll be used to pay some of the interns. We had been in the past not paying those spots. But now that folks have figured out we're doing it and getting it, now other people are paying so they can try to get those people. So we're gonna have to do a little siphon to each one of the interns that comes in. Denise has got all the licensing that she needs to have in order to supervise them. And, what we're gonna try to do is, we're gonna try again to not jump in to the deep end. We need to start kind of right where we're at right now. We need to get a place where all the mental health documents will go to. That's gonna be this place. There's lots of stuff out at the sheriff's department that's been being done, and some of that we were not aware of at one point. We are now. So if we get all the paperwork in one spot, we won't have to go a bunch of different places. We just go to the one spot for the county stuff on mental health. So
this doesn't take the place of the one that you already have. You already have a mental health and veterans docket, correct? Because I have one, but I've done a couple of veterans in the capacity of misdemeanor cases. So this is just a continuation of what you already have.
correct, we're building on top of, so that we can eventually probably wind up with a true mental health court, veterans court. And then we're still gonna do civil stuff too, they've gotta be separate. So we're still doing both programs. It's a year-long program. Upon completion of the program, and we've had good success. We've had some that didn't make it for one reason or another, but we've had good success, we believe. And it all got started because we had a meeting at the Santa Fe building about the mental health issues. And I don't know if they ever met again, but anyway, there was issues about talking about money, we need stats to go apply for money. So that's why we started the program in the first place, was not only to help the veterans and the civilian participants, but also to build statistics so we could apply for grants. And so we're moving our way up the ladder with the veterans program. And so we're gonna try to get all the paperwork in one spot. We're gonna get the counseling stuff going. WT has been really great to us. Nobody that we've asked to help has declined. The defense lawyers are on board. Also, I'll skip them a little bit. And everything is working really smoothly. Now, if we move to this stage, we're gonna keep it small, get all the pieces in place, get all the paperwork in place and all that stuff, and then we'll be ready to take another step later on.
But in your mental health, how does that flow over or carry over?
You know, sometimes it does, but I'm only allowed to do misdemeanor cases. He does all the rest. So this is a good thing. It's a good thing that we do this because there are so many people out there who need this help every day. How many veterans a day kill themselves? 6, 7, 20 a day. So that's nationwide. So it's much needed, very much needed. So this is a plus.
Move we approve the resolution that establishes approves the process of applying for the grant for the veterans mental health.
Second, for a quick discussion, I do have 2 questions if I may, Judge. So Randall, let me make sure, I think Jason wrote this, is very well written, whoever wrote this is really, whoever did that, very in-depth, thank you very much. Just to make sure I'm understanding, so you're applying for the grant, that's due in a couple of days. It references in the document that it's really not needed, the approval of the court isn't needed, you're just adding that for support of the grant. And it said it's been approved by the governing body. Who's the governing body? it references that in the document. I'm not sure who approved it, just housekeeping.
You're the governing body,
Um,
Commissioners.
okay, the proposal says the submission of the proposal has been approved by our governing body, so I just didn't know if there was a different body that's approving that. Okay, and then, 150,000 is the grant that you're
Yes.
referencing, and the main takeaways I heard were pay for the interns that are kind of in-house, but you're hoping to pay them for their work, and then, expanding those counseling services, is that right? Those are kind of the main,
Well, and then there's money for folks that can't afford to get to their appointments.
I saw the Uber driver.
Uber drivers, that kind of stuff, it's on the second page, in paragraph, dead center. all of them.
Yeah, I just was looking for the main, yeah, so the counseling, transportation, paying the interns, and then does the county, do we need to be prepping for it? Sometimes
After the year.
after year one,
Then we will.
are you, after year one, and you'll apply for the grant again,
Absolutely.
right? So do we, on the county side, should we be prepping for fiscal dollars to offset this?
We don't have, there is not a cash match,
Okay,
but we are using Denise's salary as a cash match to show we've got skin in the game.
okay, thank you.
And
That
that's,
answers my question.
they like it when you have skin in the game.
Sure, everyone does.
Granddaughters. So
Okay,
that,
thank
she's
you.
our skin in the game.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Number 20, budgeted salaries by positions. Consider for approval the transfer of funds between positions.
I am asking for, the court to, allow me to change funds across, that are already in my budget, across the lines for the for the employees of my office, as y'all have requested me to do. It's a transparency act to, quite frankly, give them more money. And it's all that's money in my budget, it's not any new money at all. Some of it is, we've got 3 brand new lawyers. Their salary went up to the level of the new lawyers, if you approve that.
Are all of these filled positions, Randall, like someone's in all of these jobs?
We have one vacancy now, and that happened last Friday, his last day was last Friday. And that was Wright Ellison. He took a job with the feds and wound up, he's from New Mexico. He took a job with the feds in New Mexico that wound up him landing in Las Cruces, which is 1 hour from where he lives, instead of 7 hours from where he lives. Or his family is, I should say.
On your recommendation here, I don't think ever employees have a problem, any of us have a problem with the salary going up. Some of these there's a drop of $12,000 in someone's pay. Are employees okay with this recommendation?
Now, do what now?
Some of these positions, if I'm reading this correctly, on the change, a decrease of 12,000?
It's not an actual salary, it's a budgeted position. So the person is not necessarily making that base pay, that's just what's budgeted. No one is taking a cut in pay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no cuts in pay.
So why would we budget, other than fringe benefits is what I think of in my mind?
Because you said the commission's court voted, had line item boxes. And that's
Right.
what's caused us to have to come forward every time.
But my question is on the budget versus the actual salary. Like, what I've always understood, there's really 2 main points that make up that line item. When we have a fringe, the benefits that supersede that, like, why would they be that different?
Because you had a long-term employee leave and the new employee is not paid.
Okay,
The salary.
okay.
That's what you'll see on.
Okay.
all of these.
So in other words, this list, all the ones that have parentheses around them are the money he's taking or wants to take and give out to everybody else.
To put to another position, yes.
But it's not, the person that money's coming out of is also getting that same benefit. We're not robbing them,
I
sticking them in the
know,
same spot.
but they're raises, right?
Pardon?
They're raises. You're giving them, you're taking from amounts. Okay.
Those are already established positions.
Is that a, well, never mind, I was gonna say if that's a common practice, but, I know
Well,
it
it seems
is,
to
which
be.
is, yeah, that's what I almost reserved
It
that
seems to
comment.
be,
But let me tell you a little bit about what's happened in our office from 2016-17 budget and 17-18 and the first, I'll say 3 months of this year. We've had 13, at the end of this year, we'll have 13 lawyers that have left the office. Oh, I'll just pass it out to you. I know who don't need to get copies to you. We've had 13 lawyers leave, 4 investigators, 2 administrative people, and 1 crime victim coordinator. That's during the same time period from October 6th of 2016 to now. Well, actually, my numbers are to the end of the year, because I have one leaving in December 31st. So I decided to add that on in there. The years of service for lawyers in my courts, when I first started, there wasn't anybody in the court that didn't have 10 years worth of experience. And I apologize for the total line. I added the number of employees in the position that they were to the total there. I corrected it. As you can see, years of service, I have 3, I can tell you, I have 3 in there right now, don't have 6 months worth of 3 in the office. If you take up to 4 years, I have 11, and mostly the prosecutors. I have 11 prosecutors out of 20 that have left the office.
why are they leaving, you know? Why are they leaving?
What do you think? More money.
Just
There's some out there. I'll get to that in a second. So then we've had 7 investigators leave. We had some of them retire, some stuff like that. We've had total DA service of, our victim coordinators is the least that leaves, because we just got 1. Administratively, we've had 9 folks leave. Excuse me, I'm looking at my years of service. We have nobody between 20 years and 15 years of service. We've got well over half of my lawyers, or 55% of my lawyers have less than 4 years experience. I've got 4 investigators that have less than 4 years experience. I've got 7 administrative people that have less than 4 years experience. And are they leaving for more money? One actually left twice. Decided the grass was greener to come back. She didn't like the job, even though she was getting more money, so she decided she would come back. And got me. Within a year, found another job for more money and left. The starting salary that we have is $70,000 for a licensed attorney. I start unlicensed attorney at 60. I have 3 of those. And that's, so the money differences in this. To fix that, the fact that true, there's other factors too, but the biggest one that they go for is they're going for more money. And I want to talk about another thing now.
Can I say something about
Oh, I want to, so let me say.
the salary?
A four-year corporal at the Amarillo Police Department makes more than $70,000.
Well, I think it's easy to say that, it's money, that's why people leave. That makes me nervous.
I'm not doing it.
Anyway, it's been a few years ago, but I did a thesis on why people leave or stay in employment. And I thought it was salary. And that was about third thing down. And I don't think it's changed a whole lot. I don't think people have changed that much over the years. So I don't know. When someone says it's just they're leaving just because of salary, I don't always take
What
that
was the
as
number one thing in the survey that you read? What was the number one reason?
It's been a while since I did that. It's dissatisfaction with other things, whether it's management
It's usually management,
or
employees and money.
or the workload or something, but it's not just salary.
Our workload is plenty.
Yeah.
So sometimes one person left for about the same money for a whole lot less work. Randall County, I got their budget compared to apples, meaning my salary, first assistant salary, and what they had listed for the attorneys, 15 of them. I didn't get to use some of my attorneys because I obviously got 20. But all the way through the office, trying to pair it up apple to apple. The attorneys make nearly $33,000 more on average than the ones in my office. The investigators in Randall County make $19,957 more per average. The administrative salary, $19,800 and change. The crime victim coordinators, $13,000 and some change.
Not to belabor the point, man, but yeah, you're talking apples and oranges there. Randall, that's odd.
And I've lost at least 3, maybe probably 4 folks to Randall County. So that's just the background on the office. The money's in the budget. I'm asking for y'all to grant me the right to transfer those funds so that they can be.
Two of the things that just kind of bothered me, I'll just be honest about it. And, for basically 2 reasons. One, we're only 6 weeks into our budget. And it seems to me like we should have talked about this at budget time. Number 2, we balance our budget based on savings that we don't spend, money we don't spend. So I understand what you're saying. I understand how you're doing it. It's not increasing your budget at all, but I'm just telling you what bothered me.
I understand.
And I would agree with all those comments, Commissioner. The only thing I would also add to that, what bothered me about the topic is the precedents that we're setting, and we continue to set with every one of these, because there are some departments, their budget is so lean, their dollars truly do match the salaries and don't have the luxury, because I can't think of any department head that would not stand up here and defend increases for any of their employees.
We've been sounding that,
Yeah, for a long time.
Do not punish the DA's office because I have the ability to do that. But frankly, every elected official has the ability to do it. Scott's office can. But the only ones that really have enough money in there because we have lawyers is Scott and I. Because we have a lot of money. I've had people retire and there's $100,000 salary because they've been here for 25 years. And then I hire somebody back at 60. And I know what's going on in the other county next to me. I know what the salaries are. And then I'm still losing people. We've never lost people like this before.
I wouldn't personally use punish, I just would use discern as the governing body, you know, for holistically looking at a county budget versus a department. But I would echo the comments of I understand what you're presenting, why you're presenting it. So I'm agreeing, let's see, Judge.
2 years ago, we handled 2,600 cases. Last year, we handled 2,900. The last budget cycle, 3,400 cases.
You've also received some new positions to offset some of that, is that correct?
Yes, well, actually, not in 3 years if I got nothing for our office is busy. I promise you, we're the busiest one, and easily within a 200-mile radius. And that's the major places. And we're doing a good job. We've got an 11% dismissal rate. We're moving, got a 3% trial rate. And the rest of them employees, 86, 87% employees. I challenge you to find any offices our size that's doing better than that. And I think if you start looking, you'll see offices are having 35 and 30% dismissal rates.
And I hope you have felt the support from the court, especially as we made the big technology purchase to help offset that. So I hope throughout the years you have felt the partnership, right?
I've used my 47 PA's office money to buy the computer systems to help us. And if I hadn't done that, and y'all hadn't purchased it,
Yeah, I mean, the TechShare is the high-end software
I
program.
can't tell you how bad the
Dallas.
situation we could be just in the first 6 months if we hadn't done what we did. I promise you. It is,
That was a long
been a
time
life
coming,
saving.
it needed to happen, so.
Tad, it's my understanding that once we give a budget to a elected official, they work kind of out of it. If they have the authority to spend it when they want to, is that correct?
That's not the policy you all articulated.
Okay.
And that's why we're coming, I mean, there's a balance to be struck between approving the budget, trusting the elected official, and wanting to keep an eye on things. So you're caught in that, trying to strike that balance. And I think it's difficult for all parties.
And I think
The
what we did
purpose,
is.
as I understand it, when y'all passed this particular act, was for transparency, not for control.
2 years ago, if I remember right, the budget, the way we publish it is what helps drive this, if I remember correctly, is that we break out the salary line items so that, because this was happening, I mean, this is not new thinking in the county, this has been happening for a while, which is why the court took this stance, and we started to see salaries so out of whack and think, how did it get so disparate? And so that was one of the reasons from a budget perspective that we said, we need to bring that back to the court. And obviously, we know how difficult this is. It's very uncomfortable anytime we talk about something like this because it does set a precedence for other departments that don't have that luxury to be able to do those things. So we knew our conversation was coming when we did that. But that was at least my understanding of why we did it. It was happening.
In the bigger offices only, so.
I'm trying to understand it too, because it's also, reasonable to think that when we approve this, that's for this year, next year, but the cycle, the funds would come from where?
you have to budget the same line item. I mean, as every year, it'll come back with more increases, that, you know, for sure.
That's gonna be a constant,
No,
It should say the same line item, the same budget line item, unless they ask for more increase.
it doesn't increase the line item, what he's asking from this year. So if he came back at level funding next year, it'd be exactly the same as it was.
some of them
It's not an
need,
increase.
some of the employees are at the line item amounts. Others are not. So you take from the ones that are not in order to raise budget line item for, say, me. Take it away from Carrie, because hers had $9,000 more than it already knew. Another thing, if you tell me no today, you just told me three new lawyers, they're still gonna continue to look at 60,000 instead of 70.
No, because
Yes, you have,
you
because they
start,
don't
wait,
have
you
money.
start them out at a lower, but that money's still budgeted in that line item, you can give them a raise anytime you want.
Okay.
I mean,
Then,
is that not true? Is that not true? You started them out smaller at that same line
because they
item.
did not have a license.
Okay, and so now that they do, you can take that money from that same line item and give them,
I had to take it from someone else. Customer asked, I don't know how to explain it, any better than I have.
Well, we gotta get off of the,
The bottom line is, it's in my budget, it's in line items, I'm gonna move that money around.
okay, I
It'll
have a
benefit my
motion.
office.
I have a motion. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the changes in salary at the district office. Then I'd like to say something else after that motion is made, if it gets us.
And I'll say this, you better to know what needs to happen in my office than me.
If the court approves the changes, I would ask that we can make it coincide with the beginning of payroll. Just for ease of,
At the next payroll,
facilitation and, yes.
We're looking at 11:30 for the check, I don't know what that means for the work.
Well, it would have to be effective on the 24th is the first day of the pay period, the next full pay period.
For it to get in the 11:30 check.
No, that would be, effective on the 9th, which
it'd
is
have to be
already passed.
retroactive, we don't wanna do that.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Church, did you want to include that, December 9th? Or 11/24, I'm sorry, 11/24, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. So we're good on that, Kay? Good?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. 2, all opposed. Fails.
You just turned it into a control.
Number 21, comprehensive annual financial reports recognize the county auditor and her office have received the certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. This is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting, and financial reporting and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by our government and its management. Carrie, how many years in a row? 24 years.
Just 24, well done. Thank you. We need a 25-year celebration.
I know, we do. 22, Road and Bridge to recognize the donation of surplus rocks from TxDOT. Sebastian, that's just something we do every year, right? We do this every year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So recognized. Carter County projects, Nicholas, do you have anything to discuss today?
Nothing new, other than we're slowly kind of spending money over at the district courts, just kind of a broken record. Right now, we've shown repairs, so I don't want to keep that right on mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 24, jail report. We have 560 people in our jail, 89 of them are females, nobody.
I see.
We have 89 females, and none of them are shipped out. 84% are felonies, 2% are misdemeanors. Well, I'm assuming we don't have any insurance items for personal. Executive session, will we do that next time? Okay. Agenda items for next time?
Just the policy and procedure update on the sick leave and vacation leave, I think that terminology is.
And the Jackson Street homes. To discuss the Jackson Street homes.
Yeah, the executive session.
If needed.
Okay.
Okay. There's nothing else.